Welcome to Lesson 3, Effective Teacher Practices. In January 2022, the Ontario Human Rights Commission completed its public inquiry into human rights issues affecting students with reading disabilities. In its report entitled Right to Read, the Commission provided the following information. The prevalence of reading disabilities has been estimated to be about 5 to 10% of the population. However, many more children in kindergarten and grade 1 are at risk for reading disabilities, and without evidence-based instruction in these grades, many more children will meet diagnostic criteria for a reading disability. Dyslexia, or a reading disability in word reading, is a specific learning disability characterized by difficulties with accurate and/or fluent word reading and/or poor decoding and spelling abilities. These word reading difficulties may also result in problems with reading comprehension and can limit learning vocabulary and background knowledge from reading. Word-level reading difficulties are the most common challenge for students who struggle to learn to read well. Ashby and her colleagues reported that both struggling readers and beginning readers have poor phoneme awareness due to underdeveloped, inefficient phonological processing. The discovery and confirmation of this phonological core deficit in struggling readers is one of the most powerful discoveries in reading science. It is simple to identify poor phonemic awareness, relatively easy to provide explicit instruction, and this instruction supports gains in reading. Although dyslexia is assumed to be neurobiological in origin, there is evidence that with evidence-based reading instruction, early identification, and early evidence-based reading intervention, at-risk students will not develop a disability. If the education system is working as it should, a reading disability can be prevented for almost all students. In the year 2000, the National Reading Panel in the United States recommended the explicit instruction of phonemic awareness when teaching children to read. Over 20 years later, school boards and schools are at various stages of implementing this recommendation. As you work through this lesson, consider phonological awareness in your school division, your school, and your classroom. You may see recommended practices regarding the teaching of phonological awareness that are solidly in place and that, by all means, should be continued. You may also identify recommended practices that have not yet been implemented. If you are new to teaching phonological awareness, this lesson will provide you with a starting point. If you are already well-versed in effective teaching strategies, use this lesson as a checklist for the many practices you already have in place. Let's look at the objectives for this lesson. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to state the estimated prevalence of reading disabilities, list 4 reasons to screen phonological awareness skills in preschool, kindergarten, and grade 1, acknowledge that learners of English as an additional language must receive phonological awareness screening with timely intervention if warranted, rather than waiting for English skills to advance. Describe the scope and sequence of teaching phonological awareness skills. Describe 3 characteristics of students who will benefit from the use of visuals. Give 1 hypothesis why asking, "What is your mouth doing?" might be related to learning to read. Give 1 reason not to include letters in phonological awareness activities with young children. And list 2 ways you could engage parents in phonological awareness activities. In 1990, Marilyn Adam wrote that without direct instructional support, phonological awareness eludes about 25% of middle-class first graders and a larger proportion of students from less language-rich backgrounds, such as English as additional language learners. Our goal in the SunWest School Division is to teach phonological awareness explicitly and to provide students with the support they need to develop those skills. But teaching phonological awareness most effectively requires knowledge, resources, and parent support. You will require access to screening tools and information about the phonemes in your EAL learners' first languages. You will need an understanding of the logistics, such as the scope and sequence of phonological awareness skills, and a familiarity with methodology like the ways to use visuals and manipulatives. And you will be most effective if parents are also engaged, working with you to support the developing phonological awareness skills of their children. Let's start with you getting to know your students and the phonological awareness skills that they are bringing to your classroom. A screen is a quick and informal evidence-based assessment that provides information about possible difficulties. When administered early and then throughout the stages of development, screens provide information that is critical to effective classroom instruction and intervention. Screens advise classroom teaching by identifying students who are already struggling and need immediate Tier 3 intervention, those who might struggle but are likely to progress if provided extra assistance in the classroom, and those who are unlikely to have difficulties learning to read if provided with high-quality classroom instruction. Once children have begun to read, screening may identify students who are average readers but in fact have the potential to develop much stronger reading skills. These readers are referred to by Kilpatrick as compensatory readers. Screen results can be included in the pre-referral process if a school team wants to pursue a referral for professional assessment. It is important to recognize that screens are not foolproof. Screening tools can have a wide margin of error. Some students who are not at risk will be incorrectly identified as at risk. These are referred to as false positive results, and a significant number of at-risk students will be missed due to false negative results. Providing class-wide instruction and progress monitoring in preschool, kindergarten, and grade 1 will help to catch the students who are at risk but were missed by the screen. The Ontario Human Rights Commission made the following recommendations to the Province of Ontario. Screen for phonological awareness skills at the beginning of the year and halfway through the year in Kindergarten 1, which is pre-kindergarten in Saskatchewan, and Kindergarten 2, which is kindergarten in Saskatchewan. Screen at the beginning of the year in grade 1. The Commission did not recommend specific screening tasks or screening tools, but did recommend that the screens chosen accurately predict future student performance. The Commission commented on the importance of communicating the screen results and plans to parents. The Commission recommended the collection and analysis of data at the school level to inform Tier 1 teaching and Tier 2 and 3 intervention. And finally, the Commission recommended the collection and analysis of screen data at the board level to ensure that resources are directed to where they are most needed. Choosing the right screen or screens will be a daunting task. In this chart, I have included only a handful of the phonological awareness screens that are currently available. Still, the variation in features should be apparent. Some screens are normed, others are not. Some screens include phonological awareness tasks for preschool students, while others do not. While most screens can be administered by anyone, some testing kits are formal assessments and have Level B designation. This means that the administrator must meet certain specific requirements, like a master's degree in a relevant field or supervised experience in delivering assessments. Administration of those screens would require a psychologist, a speech-language pathologist, or a teacher with a university class in assessment. Some screens are free of charge, while others must be purchased. Another issue that will need to be considered is the timing of the screens. Screening kindergarten and preschool children in September may lead to a high number of false positives, as exposure to book reading and wordplay may be limited for some children in their early years. For this reason, some people prefer to screen kindergarten students midway through the year. It will be important to administer phonological awareness screens that are evidence-based as well as time-effective and affordable. My hope is that a committee at the ministry level works out the details regarding phonological awareness screening. In our school division, phonological awareness screening is not yet in place for our pre-K students. For the past 5 years, kindergarten students have been screened by the kindergarten teacher in November and May using a locally developed screen. The skills measured are syllable and phoneme level skills. There may be discussion in the coming year regarding the adoption of an evidence-based screen with norm-referenced scores. For this year, though, I predict we will keep the kindergarten screening tool and screen schedule as they are. In grade 1 and older grades, Kilpatrick's Past has been used sporadically for a few years now, but there are plans for it to be used on a more regular basis, at least in grades 1 through 4 in the coming years. We will talk more about the past in Lesson 8. Now, let's look at effective practices when students are learning English as an additional language. Phonological awareness skills developed in one language appear to be transferable to a second language if the languages are similar enough. So, skills developed in one alphabetic language can be used to help one read in a second alphabetic language, like English. Individuals whose first language is logographic, like Mandarin, may need direct phonological awareness training in English. With appropriate instruction, multilingual students can learn phonological awareness and decoding skills in English as quickly as students who speak English as a first language. Therefore, screen, provide instruction, and provide intervention on the same foundational word reading skills as for other students. Don't delay phonological awareness development with the plan of working on language skills first. Work to learn the characteristics of your student's native language. Instruction will be most effective if the focus is on English phonemes that do not exist in the student's first language. Create a chart for your students. Here is a link to a website managed by the Monolingual and Bilingual Speech Lab at Portland State University. The site provides lists of the English phonemes that are absent in languages from around the world. Carry out phoneme awareness activities using English words that are familiar to the EAL learner. This will allow the focus to be on the sounds of the word and not the meaning. Similarly, provide pictures of the words that are used as a means of supporting developing vocabulary. When teaching new vocabulary in ELA class, teach phonemic awareness skills at the same time as you explicitly teach vocabulary words, their meaning, and their pronunciation. Songs and poems, with their rhythm and repetition, are easily memorized and can be used to teach phonological awareness. These rhymes exist in every language, and teachers can ask students or their parents to share these culturally relevant and teachable rhymes with the class. A weakness in phonological awareness skills could be useful in differentiating EAL learners with a reading disability from EAL learners with reading problems due to low language skills. Move forward with the formal assessment of phonological awareness skills to determine the root cause of the difficulty. Now let's talk about logistics. The scope, or the skills that should be taught, is talked about throughout this module. In terms of the sequence to follow, phonological awareness has traditionally been taught in its developmental sequence, that is, starting with large units like rhyme and moving towards individual phonemes. We do know that the early developing skills do not need to be mastered before moving into the realm of phonemes. Gillen called working on one skill at a time a skill mastery approach. More recently, the Haggerty program for the general classroom has children working at several different levels of phonological awareness at once. Gillen described this method as an integrated or multiple skill approach. She recognized that teaching several skills at once can be effective as well. There is general agreement that children who struggle with learning to read should be taught phonological awareness skills in sequential order. Young students who do not learn from a program that jumps around in the developmental sequence may also learn quite well in a more carefully sequenced program. Other children likely to benefit from a sequenced approach include those with lower language skills, a history of chronic ear infections, attention issues, less preschool experience, or a family history of poor reading skills. For over 20 years, teachers have asked how much, how long, and how often should phonological awareness be taught. Science has not yet provided us with all the answers. However, here are some guidelines. In preschool, develop phonological awareness skills throughout the day, embedding wordplay within language-rich activities. Continue throughout the year. In kindergarten and grade 1, start in September and teach phonological awareness daily. Keep instruction short, 5 to 10 minutes per session. Monitor student progress. Louisa Motes suggested that 12 to 20 weeks should improve skills for most students. Plan for Tier 2 or Tier 3 intervention for students who aren't reaching benchmarks. Older students with reading problems may need daily assistance for several years. In our school division, the year plan and the teacher timelines for kindergarten and grade 1 can be found in Div Phonology, a group on OneDrive. To become a member, contact your administrator, your SLP, or your student services consultant. In my experience, teachers report that the single most important step is entering phonological awareness into one's day planner. Teachers report that this act ensures that the activities are planned and then carried out consistently. Now let's look at some of the supports that are used by effective teachers. The use of manipulatives during phonological awareness activities is an evidence-based practice. The Russian psychologist Elkonin documented that children using his sound boxes and counters segmented words into sounds better than children without those supports. A more recent study suggests that the use of textured manipulatives is even more effective than those that are smooth. So why would tokens, math blocks, and paper dots make a difference? Keep in mind that some of our students will struggle with low short-term memory. Others will have issues with attention. Concrete representations have permanence, whereas sound disappears immediately. Manipulatives act as a placeholder for the child who cannot hold on to the sound that he just heard. Manipulatives also help direct attention to the sounds in words without the complexity of knowing letters. They also provide the child with something physical to move and count. From a teacher's perspective, manipulatives allow you to give corrective feedback when the child makes an error. When a child claps 3 times for a 2-syllable word, how do you point out the error? When a child moves 3 tokens for a 2-syllable word, you can show the error and move the tokens together to develop the correct understanding. Many programs have encouraged the use of manipulatives for blending and segmenting at the sound level. A number of current resources recommend manipulatives even at the syllable level. It's important to note that the use of manipulatives is valuable when teaching phonological awareness skills, but children must develop the ability to demonstrate each skill without any support. So use manipulatives to teach the skill and build confidence, but then fade their use until the child is successful, independent of any external support. The use of visuals supports children in the classroom in so many ways. Visuals give a second chance to the child with inattention who missed the word the first time it was said. Visuals lower the cognitive load if short-term memory is a problem, allowing the learner to focus on the task instead of what the word was. And visuals support the child with developing language skills, reinforcing the name of the picture or the pronunciation of the word in long-term memory. In phonological awareness activities, the visual may assist with following the directions. In this case, by pointing to the head of the dog or snake, we can assist with the question, what is the first sound in hat? On this sheet, The picture above each Alconum box will support attention and memory as children segment the short words into sounds. Visuals may be in the form of objects, like the apple and block shown on the left, or they may be in the form of picture cards, like this set of words created for an alliteration activity where all the words start with k. Teaching with visuals takes effort and resource management, but the reward is huge. Recently, there has been a renewed interest in articulatory gestures, or the movements of the lips, the tongue, the teeth, and other structures involved in speaking. There has been the hypothesis that it is the articulatory gesture associated with letters that is remembered in the brain and not the actual sound. Whatever the relationship between articulatory gestures and reading, there is current support for drawing children's attention to their mouth and tongue movements during phonological awareness activities. Do draw attention to articulatory gestures and ask questions like, when you say b, how are you making that sound? And when you say what is working, your tongue or your lips? Finally, should letters be included in phonological awareness activities or not? A standard line has always been, you can do these activities in the dark, because they are purely auditory and letters were not to be involved. In the past decade, people have asked if keeping letters out of phonological awareness activities is either necessary or helpful. Gillen reviewed the literature, including 2 meta-analyses. She concluded, phonological awareness should be integrated with letter sound knowledge and should make explicit the link between speech and print. But Ashby and her colleagues continue to recommend that letters not be included. They say, phonemic awareness activities that use manipulatives direct student attention to the sounds in spoken words while avoiding the complexity of letter identities and letter sound mapping. This may be helpful for both emergent readers and older struggling readers. In Teaching Phonemic Awareness in 2022, a guide to educators, they recommend that if letters are used during phonemic awareness activities, avoid spoken words with letter patterns that have not been taught yet, emphasizing that each word must be spellable by all of the children in the group. I support the connection of print to speech at the end of each phonemic awareness activity. For example, asking the children to find the letter tiles for the sounds in the last word that they segmented. A 5th effective practice is to engage the parents of your students. Consider developing a phonological awareness calendar that gives examples of the skill that you are working on each week. Set up an online sound bingo for the whole family to play. Develop a workshop where parents and students can work through activities that support language and literacy. Send home short how-to videos through Seesaw, or partner with your local library to provide contests or summer activities that could engage families with phonological awareness. Let's recap Lesson 3. Early screening can inform Tier 1 programming, identify children expected to succeed if additional assistance is provided in the classroom, identify children who will require intensive systematic instruction, and support a referral for formal assessment from an SLP or psychologist. Provide EAL learners with screening, instruction, and timely intervention. Do not delay waiting for language skills to develop. Focus intervention for EAL learners on the English phonemes that don't exist in the individual's first language. Manipulatives will assist children by making sounds concrete and helping to hold their attention. Visuals will assist children with following instructions, understanding the meaning of the words, holding words in their short-term memory, and carrying out phonological awareness tasks. Drawing attention to articulatory gestures is supported. The use of letters during phonemic awareness activities continues to be debated. Consider using letter tiles at the end of each activity. Engage parents as one more way of supporting the developing phonological awareness skills of your students.